If you've ever opened your banking app, stared at the minus sign, felt sick, and thought, I'm failing my family, this video is for you. If you've ever watched your wife's face when the card gets declined, or when you say, we can't afford that, and you feel this hot flash of shame, like you're less of a man, stay with me, because you're not the only one. Today, we're going to talk about being a Catholic husband who feels like he just doesn't earn enough. And I want to go a lot deeper than just work harder, bro, or just trust providence. We're going to talk about why financial shame feels so heavy for men, what the church actually expects from you as a provider and what she doesn't, how to lead your home through tight finances without collapsing into self pity or rage, and how to face your wife, your children, and God when you feel like your income isn't good enough. By the end, I want you to walk away with a very clear sense of what God really asks of you and a simple plan to start climbing out of that suffocating shame. And let me give you a composite from coaching and the Nolan Bot logs. We'll call him Michael. Michael is late 30s, 4 kids, lives in a modest rented house, one car that keeps breaking down. He works hard, 45 to 50 hours a week, but the job isn't glamorous, blur, low prestige, not the sort of thing people brag about at parties. He told me, well, every time I go to Mass, I feel like the poorest man in the pew. I see the other dads with nice cars, bigger houses, better holidays. My wife tries to be supportive, but I can see the disappointment. And when the boys ask why we can't go on holiday like their cousins, it just guts me. I feel like I'm failing as a man. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't blowing money on vices. They were tithing. He was showing up. But shame had wrapped itself around his masculinity. Now, if any part of that hits you, the comparison, the embarrassment, the quiet resentment, you need to hear this. You are not primarily fighting numbers. You are fighting lies. Lies about what makes a man, lies about what God actually expects from you, lies about what will truly make your wife and children safe. And we have to drag those lies into the light. Because if you don't confront the shame, you will either become a bitter, angry provider or a checked out, passive one. And both options poison your home. So let's put some solid ground under your feet. The church does teach that a husband has a serious duty to provide for his family according to his state in life. Traditional moral theologians like Callan and McHugh are very clear. The father is bound in justice to work and to provide the ordinary means for the family's support, food, shelter, clothing, education, in a way fitting to their condition. So yes, you cannot sit on the sofa, refuse work, and claim your trusting providence. Sloth is a mortal sin when it means refusing your state in life duties. But notice what the church doesn't say. She doesn't say you must match the lifestyle of the richest family at your parish. She doesn't say you're a bad husband if your wife can't keep up with Instagram. She doesn't say you must provide your children with foreign holidays, brand new trainers, and a bedroom each, or you failed. She says you must do your honest best, using ordinary means, to support them according to your state in life, and you must trust God to supply what you cannot. That distinction matters, because a lot of what feels like financial shame is actually envy, comparison, and the weight of worldly expectations you've let settle on your shoulders. God doesn't judge you on whether you can afford private school. He judges you on whether you are lazy or faithful, whether you seek easy comfort or shoulder the cross. So let's break this down, because I don't earn enough is rarely just about income. For most men I coach, there are 3 layers. First, real constraints. The budget really is tight. Numbers matter. Second, disordered expectations. Yours, hers, or both. Third, wounded pride. what does my income say about me as a man? So we have to address all three. First, the real constraints. Sometimes the numbers are just brutal. Rent or mortgage is high, kids, groceries, fuel. The pay packet doesn't stretch. Moral theology is very sane here. You are not required to do the impossible. If you are already working reasonable hours at honest work and you still can't hit a flashy lifestyle, that is not a sin. Where there is sin is if you could reasonably increase your skills, seek better work, trim frivolous spending, or humbly ask for help, and you refuse because of laziness, pride, or comfort. We'll come to that. Second, disordered expectations. This is where most of the pain lives. Michael's wife, for example, grew up in a home where holidays twice a year were normal. New cars, brand names. They never talked about money while dating. She assumed that's what marriage would look like. He assumed she'd get it once she saw the reality. They never examined the expectations in the light of the gospel, but our Lord is clear. Beware of all covetousness. For a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. If your wife's functional standard of a good husband is a man who gives me the lifestyle my friends have, that is not Catholic, that is worldliness. And if your functional standard of being a real man is matching the income and stuff of other men, that's worldliness too. Those expectations have to be crucified if you're going to know peace. That doesn't mean being content with squalor. It does mean being content with sufficiency while you steadily improve. Now, number 3, the wounded pride. This one is subtle. You might say, I'm worried about my family. But underneath, what you're really worried about is, what does my job say about me? What does my salary say about my worth? What will people think when they see our car, our house? And the devil loves to press here. Because if he can convince you that your worth as a man is equal to your income, he can make you feel useless, even when you are objectively obeying God. And a man who feels worthless is a man who will either shut down or explode. Neither leads your family to heaven. So before we talk about budgets or side hustles, you have to decide whose verdict matters more to you, Christ's or Instagram's. So what does leadership look like when you don't earn enough? Let's go back to Michael. For years, he hid. He never wanted to talk about money with his wife. He'd snap, I'm doing the best I can, or withdraw into silence. She, in turn, would criticize his job, compare him to her brother-in-law, and spend as if money were endless, because she was frightened too. Their fights were never really about the electric bill. They were about fear and blame. So what changed? Not his salary, at least not at first. What changed was that he finally acted as head. Here's what that looked like. He confessed his envy, comparison, and pride. He owned the mess without making excuses. He led the first honest money conversation they'd ever had. He named the expectations that had been driving both of them. He drew lines where he had to as a husband and father. He sat down with his wife and said calmly, I know you're afraid. I am too. I've also been hiding from you. That's on me. Here is our real situation. Here's what comes in. Here's what goes out. Here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do right now. And I'm not going to pretend we can just to avoid an argument. God will hold me accountable for how we steward this. I'm asking you to walk with me in this, not against me. That is leadership. Not bluffing, not pretending to be rich, not lying to make her happy. Facing reality in the light of God and inviting her to follow. Did she like everything he said? No. But over time, as she stayed calm and consistent, she began to respect it. Now let's talk about the moral side, because this is where many Catholic men get stuck. I see three big areas in the logs: sloth and escapism, dishonesty and hiding, envy and bitterness. So sloth and escapism first. Sloth isn't just laziness. Aquinas calls it sadness about spiritual good, that heavy resistance to the effort your duties require. In practice, it looks like staying in a dead-end job out of fear, even when you could upskill and move. Refusing to have awkward conversations with your boss about a raise. Numbing yourself with screens, games, or pointless scrolling instead of planning, learning, applying. You might still be working 40 hours, so you tell yourself, I'm not lazy, but you're slothful about the hard, scary work of taking responsibility for your earning potential. Moral theology is clear. If you can reasonably increase your ability to provide, and you refuse from sheer love of comfort, that's a sin against your state in life. God is not asking you to be a millionaire. He is asking you not to bury your talent in the ground. Now, dishonesty and hiding next. Shame breeds secrecy. So you hide how bad the debt is. Pretend the overtime is optional when you know you need it. Say, we're fine when you're not fine, and then snap at your wife for spending, even though you never gave her clear numbers. Callan and McHugh are very blunt. A husband must be transparent enough with his wife for her to fulfill her own duties in the home. If she doesn't know the state of the finances, she can't cooperate wisely. Secrecy here is not headship, it's cowardice. You don't need to dump your anxieties on her like a child. You do need to let her see the real picture. And then envy and bitterness. The 10th commandment forbids coveting our neighbor's goods. That's not just wishing you had a nicer car. It's that deep resentment that someone else has what you think you deserve. Social media is engineered to inflame this. So you scroll, you see other men on apparently higher incomes, and you sit there stewing. Instead of asking, what is God asking me to do with the gifts I have? You ask, why did they have more than me? That envy is the exact opposite of gratitude. And where there is no gratitude, there will be no peace, no matter how much you earn. So if you're thinking, I'll stop feeling like a failure once I hit X amount a year, you're lying to yourself. If you don't kill the envy now, it will follow you all the way up the pay scale. Now let's talk about one of the hardest parts. How do you look your wife in the eye when you feel like you're not providing enough for her? Here's the temptation. Either you collapse into apology for every boundary you draw, sorry, we can't afford it, I'm such a loser, or you harden into anger. Stop nagging me about money, I'm doing my best. Neither is Christ-like. Your model is Christ the bridegroom, who leads his bride with truth and charity. So practically, this looks like speak plainly about the numbers, name your responsibility without self-hatred, acknowledge her fears without being ruled by them, draw clear lines where you must and stand by them calmly. For example, I know you'd love a bigger house. I would too. Right now, with our income and debt, it would be irresponsible for me to take that on. I won't gamble our family security to keep up with other people's lifestyles. Here's what I am doing to improve our situation over the next 12 to 24 months. That is headship, not pleasing her at all costs, not raging, leading. And if she throws comparisons at you, why can't you be more like X? You don't need to defend your ego. You simply say, I understand why you feel that way, but God isn't going to judge me on what your brother earns. He'll judge me whether I've been faithful here. I'm willing to work, to learn, to grow. I'm not willing to build a life on envy. That's a hard line, but it's a holy one. So let's get practical. For the next 90 days, here's what I want you to commit to. First, before God once a week, sit before the Blessed Sacrament, or in a quiet place at home and say, Lord, I'm afraid. I feel like I don't earn enough. Show me what is truly my duty and give me the courage to do it. Take away envy, take away cowardice, and make me a faithful provider in whatever state you have given me. Confess envy, sloth about improving your skills, dishonesty or hiding, any resentment towards your wife over money. Grace matters. You won't white-knuckle your way out of this. Then, with your wife, schedule one money conversation a week for the next month. Same time, same place. No kids, phones away. Agenda is simple. What came in? What went out? What decisions do we need to make this week? You lead it. Calmly, no shouting, no sulking. Over time, this rhythm alone massively reduces fear and guesswork. And then, with your work, pick one concrete way to increase your earning capacity in the next 90 days. It might be asking your boss about progression, applying for 10 better roles a week, starting a simple side income using a skill you already have, or getting certified in something that will raise your value. Nothing crazy, nothing hustle porn style, just steady, disciplined growth. If you genuinely cannot find any route to earning more right now, then at least you can look God in the face and say, I have not buried my talent. I'm using what you gave me. That knowledge kills a lot of shame. Now, if this has hit you hard and you realize you need ongoing help actually doing this, not just nodding along, that's exactly why we built Patriarchy School inside patriarchy.com. It's where Christian husbands who take headship seriously get clear teaching on money, headship, and boundaries. Other men who are also trying to be faithful providers in a deranged economy, and access to Nolan Bot on WhatsApp, an AI coach trained on my real coaching calls. So when you're staring at a bill or about to have a hard money conversation, you're not alone. Men inside have paid off debts, finally set real budgets, and just as importantly, stopped hating themselves for not being rich. So head over to patriarchy.com to learn more and join us. Now, 2 things before you click away. In the comments, tell me, without doxing yourself, which part of this hit hardest. The envy, the hiding, the sloth, or the expectations. Your honesty will show other men, not the only ones, feeling this. And second, send this video privately to one Catholic husband you know who's quietly drowning in money stress. Remember, your salary does not define your worth. God is not asking you to be the richest man in your parish. He's asking you to be the faithful man in your parish, to work, to lead, to trust him, and to refuse the lie that you are only as much of a man as your paycheck. Thanks for watching. Head over to patriarchy.com to join us inside Patriarchy School, and I'll see you in the next video.